All right, so for this Wednesday winners, we are talking about evoking the why. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, insurance sales are an emotional sale, okay? It is emotion backed by logic. So really, we need to bring out that emotion to the forefront for our clients. That way they understand the emotion and they're more likely to make a sale. If you come at it from a purely logical stance, they're never going to buy, right? They need that feeling. They need that tug of what's going to happen if I'm gone and what do I leave behind for my family, right? That's the most important thing. You know, in the beginning, I struggled because I did car sales for 5 years or so, and it was purely logical. There was just a little bit of emotion, right? If you're selling like a Mustang, or if you're selling like a big truck with a, big engine, that there's feelings attached to that, right? Stepping on that accelerator when you're in a Mustang is something else, right? So, but purely, it's just I was selling, daily drivers for most people. So it wasn't very emotional. It was logical. What's the payment? Can I afford it? And do I like the car enough to want to buy it, right? Well, it's a complete opposite here in insurance sales, right? You're going to focus mainly on the emotion and then back it up with logic. Okay. It's the exact opposite of most sales jobs. If you get the weak emotion, what I mean by that is surface emotion, you're never going to breach the barrier to make the sale. Okay. You're going to be doing this by asking questions. How you should be setting up your appointments is this: 5 to 10 minutes for rapport building. Talk to them. And this is great to build trust. Once you build the trust, you can start to get the emotion out of it. A great way to build that trust is talk about something in their area. If you're not working local leads, you should be Googling their specific area and find things to talk about. Hey, have you been to this restaurant? Hey, have you ever been, you're by this national park? Have you ever been there? What do you like to do for fun? I see there's a big lake out there. Things like that. Get them talking about their state, where they live, what they like to do. That'll open them up a little bit so you can make them vulnerable enough to start talking emotionally. Okay. For instance, in the state of Maine, there's festivals going on, right? If you look up festivals, that's another one. But we in Maine, Mainers invented whoopie pies, guys. Just going to be honest there. It was invented in Maine. But you saw me on my dial session last night. I was talking to the lady about the whoopie pie festival. She lived in the same town that it was going, and we hit it off. We had that conversation, right? So those are the ways to get home runs on rapport, is talking initially about something in their area, something geographical or an event. The next thing you should do is you should be asking them, okay, we talked about this a little bit on the phone, but why don't you tell me what your goals are and what you're expecting and what your concern is? Notice I said concern. Concern is something emotional. What do they have an issue with, right? Well, I don't want to leave my house for my family when I die. Is that a good enough why? It's really not. That's just a surface why. That's logical, right? Really, they just want to pay off the home if someone passes away. You really got to dig into it and ask them, well, what does that look like? What does that look like, right? You're going to ask those extended questions to get the real answers out of them. Nelson taught me this. You really got to dig deep and find those deeper whys, right? What does it look like for your wife if you passed away tomorrow? What's plan B, right? That kind of sits you in your seat like, oh my God, I haven't thought of that, right? That's the emotion we're looking for. That's what we want. And typically you're talking to mostly the wives that fill out this form. I'd say about good 60% of the time you're talking to wives who filled out this form. So you've got to get the husband on the same page, okay? And really make her have that emotion in front of him, because he's just going to come along for the ride. He's going to feel like, yeah, I want to make sure my wife is protected. And then I bring that up. You want to make sure your wife is protected, right, sir? Because what happens if he says no? He's just going to look like a jerk at that point, right? So that's what I'm talking about, getting into those deeper emotions. That's the first way to do it. So after you build rapport, now the very next thing you should do in the process of the sale is you need to ask a very specific question, okay? And this is how I like to set it up. If this was free, we'd already be done by now, right, folks? Ha ha ha, right? They laugh with me, but it's not. So with my expertise and 180 different policies, we're going to put our heads together to find a premium between free and hell no per month. Okay. Now, if we find that sweet spot for you, is there any reason that would hold you back from protecting each other? Notice how I say protecting each other, not would there be anything holding you back from tonight, or there be anything holding you back from signing the paperwork? Those are logical things. Protecting each other is an emotional statement, okay? Because obviously they want to protect each other. So is there anything holding you back from protecting each other? For instance, talking to someone else, maybe shopping around, anything like that. If they say no, you're good to go. That was a soft close. You've built some emotion, okay? Now, sometimes you're going to run into gentlemen, I forget what Nelson calls them, but they're the arm crossers, right? They sit back, they're all silent, and they're just sitting there, they're listening to you. They're probably looking off screen like this. And this is how I know there's a TV in the background. So if you see someone doing this, ask them, hey, what are you watching? Anything good? You don't have to be awkward about it. Just ask them what they're watching and say, hey, well, that sounds like a good show, but hey, I'm getting to the important parts. Do you mind shutting that off real quick so that we can make sure you completely understand how this works? Was I a jerk in that moment? No. I was just being forefront and getting them to realize emotionally that this is serious and they need to pay attention. So if I see a gentleman talking, sitting back here like this, I'm going to start poking him with questions and start gearing my conversation towards him. The wife has said everything that she needs to. So I need to emotionally get him to the level where she is. Okay. So I'm going to ask him questions like, well, how important is this to you, Brian? Right? To protect your wife. What is it about this that you would, you think she would benefit from? Right? What did you like about the living benefits? Right? Start asking him questions. Sometimes start with anything but insurance. If he's still, after rapport building, if he's still kind of uptight, ask him anything but insurance, right? Try to make him laugh. That's the quickest way to charm somebody and get them right into your pocket, right? Is get them to laugh a little bit, right? Throw it right back at him, right? If he's being snarky, throw a little bit back at him, right? You don't have to be rude, just be, assertive, right? Like, listen, John, it looks like you're not enjoying this too much. I know that insurance is not the funnest thing in the world, but it is important to you to protect your wife, right? Awesome. So what does it look like for her if you pass away? Do you make more money in the house, right? What does that kind of look like for her, right? Get him to open up about it, right? So that's important because you got to notice those things in these appointments in order to move forward. If you are getting anybody, I mean, we've all had appointments. Most of us on here have been through a couple of appointments or are about to. You're going to notice the people who are closed off and aren't giving you any leeway or any emotion. Guess what? Did they buy? No. We're not seeing that. So you notice, so you got to start digging in and finding that why, right? Start talking about if they knew anybody, right? I mean, we've all seen GoFundMe's, right? That's another way I build emotions. Like how many GoFundMe's have you guys seen this year? They're like, oh my God, too many. Anybody that you knew? Yeah, actually, I had a cousin who, he had COVID. He was on a ventilator for 6 months. He lost his job and he ended up losing his house. His family lost his house when he passed. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to avoid with you right now, right? Yeah. Right now, now they realize it. It's their aha moment. They've connected. They've made that connection. So,
hey,
yes.
Hey, I just wanted to interject something that you said that reminded me. A very good point. I use 2 techniques and I change them. Normally we ask the wife, and I not only ask, your husband passed away and what would you do? What's plan B? I used to ask it that way, and then I changed it to, ma'am, it's been 30 days. Yeah, 30 days have passed. Your husband went to the store to get something for you, had a car accident, never came back, God forbid. It's been 30 days. What have you had to do to keep a roof over the kid's head? So I'm putting it in past tense. I got this from Kimberly Noretto from Stage at Conference. I came back home, revamped my script, and made all the difference in the world. But then I did one more thing. I had that guy like this. And instead of asking the wife, I asked the husband to get him active. Say, sir, I just like to know, it's been 30 days and you've passed away. You're looking down from heaven at your wife. What has she had to do for the past 30 days to keep a roof over the kids' heads because this insurance wasn't in place? Tell me what she's been doing for 30 days. Has she been crying? Has she had to move out the house? Talk to me, sir. When I did that, instant participation. Because now he's answering in front of his wife, but he's talking about the past 30 days, how she's been suffering. So you just reminded me of that. That was something huge I did when I was in the home. I haven't done it so much on a Zoom, but thank you for bringing this up. I'm going to reintegrate that back into my plan. Great job. You're doing awesome, Blake.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, see, it does the same thing, but it makes them worried. It stresses them out a little bit because now they've had 30 days and they're trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen. People don't think of this on a day-to-day basis. Okay. This is why they're here. And this is why we need to bring it up. Right. And this is where the next part of this becomes so important. Stories. Facts tell, stories sell. Okay. So you're going to use stories to get your point across, and people will start to relate. For instance, I asked the question, what would be plan B for you if your husband passed away? And she said, she actually took the next steps right out of my mouth because she told me a story. She said, well, my dad unexpectedly passed away last year and he left me behind with his house and nothing else. I have no siblings. I had no immediate family. My mom sure wasn't going to help. And what ended up happening was I had to pay for his cremation out of pocket. I had to cover his mortgage. I could only get 1 month, and that money was wasted because the bank ended up taking the house. Right. And so I wasn't able to get any of that. So she told me a story. Right. She was the one that felt this need. And that's why, I made the sale. As soon as she told me that, I knew it was going to be a sale because she related to it. But that's where we want to get our clients to relate to a situation like that. Okay. So when you're building rapport, you should be asking about hobbies. Okay. This is going to build up some of your ammo. Ask about hobbies. Ask what they like to do. Ask what they do for work, because we're going to make the stories fit their narrative. Big one for me is motorcycles. There's a lot of sand on the roads in Maine, and Maine has a ton of motorcycle accidents every single year. We have really bad roads. They're all very bumpy, and usually there's a lot of sand, things like that. So, I talk about how much they love riding, and it's so easy to say, what happens if you got hurt on your motorcycle? And they said, yeah. You know why? Because they know someone who died on a motorcycle. That's how serious motorcycle is. I mean, everybody who rides a motorcycle knows someone who died on a motorcycle. Or if you know somebody that was like, yeah, Faith just said that her grandfather got killed on his bike, right? It happens. It happens. So you're going to use that. So when I ask the big question, hey, it's been 30 days since John passed away riding his motorcycle. He didn't see the person that was running the red light and they clipped him. What? And I'm serious, be that visionary, like give those details across. You don't want to be like a gory horror movie, but you definitely want to, tell the story a little bit. He was clipped and he didn't make it. What did the last 30 days look like for you? What bills are you going to have to take care of? How did you take care of the burial costs? How did you take care of the house and the 2 kids while you're trying to handle that? Right? You're building up that emotion. That's how you're going to use it. Another great place to use stories is during the living benefits. Okay. So for regular term, we've got our living benefits, right? I'll explain the good stories for MPP next, mortgage payment protection. So for living benefits, we all know that for critical illness, you can get up to 95% of your policy's death benefit if you have a heart attack, stroke, cancer,
India's not on.
kidney failure. Hey, can we mute out real quick? Jared, was that you? Were you asking something? I think that was you.
That was me. Sorry. I was looking at something.
Okay, no problem. No problem. You're allowed to speak, so you're good. So, where was I? So, yes. So we're talking about living benefits. So I have a story for each living benefit. So for the critical illness, you can collect up to 95% if you have a heart attack, stroke, or cancer. I'm going to talk about the time that my father-in-law had a heart attack and he wasn't able to work for over a year because of his complications until they could figure out his arrhythmia. Right? He wasn't able to work. Every time he'd walk, he'd get serious AFib and they couldn't get it under control. Right? They practically came down to the wire on paying for his house. Do you want that to happen to your wife? See how I framed that there? I instantly told my story and then I pushed it onto them. Do you want that to happen to your wife? Or that's not what you want to happen, right? You want to protect her and make sure that she doesn't have to worry about that, right? See how I'm framing those questions? That's how you're going to push that story onto them to make them relate. For critical illness, for chronic illness, they can collect up to, a certain portion of their death benefit each year until it reaches a certain percentage, right? And that's if they become disabled or cognitively impaired, like from a motorcycle accident. Story I like to tell for that is I had a client that was 37 years old and he was skiing in Maine. We love to ski. Okay. So in Maine or Utah, I'm going to use this one. So, he was skiing and he was going down a double black diamond, which everybody knows is one of the more dangerous and harder, courses to ski. And he clipped a tree. He was going so fast, he missed a tree and he clipped it. Well, he ended up shattering his hip. Okay. And he was only 37 years old. Well, he had to have multiple reconstructive surgeries. So he's already out for 4 months, right? Can you imagine wearing that big cast from your waist down to keep your hip in place? You see how I'm selling this story? So you want to keep that from your hip down, right? He couldn't walk. He couldn't dress himself. So he qualified for the chronic illness. But guess what happened? After those 4 months, after the last surgery, it got infected. He spent the next 8 months in the hospital fighting a bone infection. Meanwhile, he had 2 little girls and a $300,000 mortgage to take care of. His life insurance didn't do any good because how does he get his life insurance? Well, you have to die. Exactly. But since he talked to me and had a policy, he was able to collect a certain percentage of his policy's death benefit and keep him and his 2 little girls in their home. Can you imagine going through that 11 months and then not having a place to come home to because you were sick or hurt? How's that fair? Right? I really hit that home. Now, that's not a real story. That's not something that actually happened, but it illustrates the same thing. Okay. That every one of you have a story that's like that. That's how you want to convey it. You want to get detailed. You want to make them feel that story. Okay. Now, for mortgage payment protection, this is the story that I tell. Okay. So I'll go through the 3 ways we protect our clients. The first is accidental. The second is mortgage payment protection. And what I mean by that is, for instance, I had, one of my agents, and this is a true story. It's not my agent, but it's Josh Harris's best friend. His father had throat cancer. And his father died within 9 months. It took him pretty quick. On a side note, do you guys see how I'm getting into my voice? I'm putting on a show, really. I'm really getting into it. I'm getting invested in it. I'm not being monotoned. So his father had throat cancer. And within 9 months, he was gone. He did leave the home behind to his 2 sons, which are out of state. They lived out of state. and he owed about $150,000 on that home. The mortgage payment was about $1,500 a month. Well, when he passed, he left the home behind, but the sons couldn't afford the $1,500 a month. That's a lot of money. And they scrounged up 1 month of mortgage payments, right? Meanwhile, that was just to pay the mortgage. That wasn't the plane ticket to get out there. That wasn't a place to stay while they're out there to handle their father's affairs. So guess what? Does the bank care if they pass away? No. They only want the mortgage to be paid, and they only care about the amount that was owed. So when 90 days came around, the bank came in, they foreclosed, and they short sailed the home. So not only did they lose their father's house, his possessions, the home was worth $300,000, which means they lost on $150,000 of equity. Now, here's the emotional question that I ask. Don't you think if they had at least a year's worth of mortgage payments, they would have been able to figure it out and make it work? And they say yes, right? Boom, that's the emotion right then and there. There's another story that I'm not too great at, but Jared Leifert's awesome at it. It's called the Bill South story. One of our agents, Bill South, has a really powerful story of something that happened to, I think, his sister. Jared, are you on here?
Yeah, man, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. Do you mind sharing that story with everybody?
Yeah, man. I'll definitely tell that story.
Awesome.
So, I always tell this story when we're talking about buying time. So I always talk about the death benefit, I talk about the living benefits, and I talk about buying time. So I always say the third thing that mortgage protection is and does. I actually want to tell you a quick little story. And it's a story about a personal friend of mine, and his name is Bill South. Now, Bill lives down in Florida, and he's in his mid-70s. He's one of these guys, he has a big old personality, right? He walks into the cafe in the morning to get his coffee with all his buddies, and everybody goes, Bill! Kind of like Norm from Cheers. You guys remember that TV show Cheers back in the 80s? Yeah. Well, everybody knows and loves Bill. And his entire family has lived down in Florida their entire lives, and he has a younger brother down there as well. His name is Alan. And Alan is married to this lovely lady named Linda. And it was always Alan's dream that when he retired, he wanted to move up to Nashville, Tennessee, and he wanted to go write some country music, like. And I was like, man, if that's what you want to do, come on, you do you. You worked hard, you deserve it. And I tell you what, time came for him to retire, and he did just that. Sold his place down in Florida and moved up to Tennessee. And it wasn't long that he was playing guitar up and down Music Row Lake, but I got to tell you something. He was not very good. But he was having a good time, though, and that's all that mattered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a few months on down the road, he started noticing that he was having a little bit of a tingle in his right hand. And like a typical guy, he didn't go to the doctor, because us guys, we don't go to the doctor unless our arm falls off, right? And he didn't go either until he got that same tingle in his left hand. And when that happened, he knew something was up. So long story short, went to the doctor, did a bunch of tests, and it turned out he had a very rare case of Parkinson's. Now, I don't know what you know about that particular disease, but it's neurological. It affects your brain. And typically, it only affects half your brain. And that's why Muhammad Ali, like, do you remember Muhammad Ali, the boxer?
Yeah.
Yeah. He had Parkinson's, but it only was affecting half of his brain. And that's why he was still able to light the torch at the Olympic Games when he did that. But this kind that Bill had gotten, it affected both sides of his brain. And within 3 months, it took him down to the point that he was bedridden. He couldn't do a thing. Now, Linda, his wife, she needed some help care for him. It was beyond what she knew how to do. She wasn't a trained nurse. And just for the help to come to the house, like, it was over $5,000 a month.
Phew.
And he was in that condition for over 3 years before he passed away. You can do the math in your head. That's a ton of money.
Right.
Now, he ended up passing in December of 2015, and my friend Bill came up to go to the service. And afterwards, he and Linda were just talking, consoling each other. You know how you do in those situations. And right in the middle of that conversation, she just broke down. And she said, Bill, I have no idea what I'm going to do. We have spent all the money that we saved up for Alan just taking care of him. You know, all the money we saved up for retirement is gone. And I haven't even been able to make the mortgage payment on the house in the last 3 months. And Bill said, you need to go talk to the bank and you need to go down there sooner than later. So she did. She went down there and explained the situation, you know, what had happened and why she was in this position. As you can probably imagine, that banker looked her dead in the eye, said, hey, I'm real sorry for your loss, but, and we all know the truth comes after the but, right? The best thing I can do is give you 3 months to try to catch up on that loan. You won't ever be able to be late again after that, or we're going to come take the house. And furthermore, if you don't want us to start that whole process right now today because you're already so far behind, you need to sign right here that you understand what we just said before you leave. Like they made her sign, and it was awful. But she came home, she called some friends, they pulled together a few $100, they painted the inside of the house, painted the outside of the house, trimmed the bushes, cut the lawn. Those are the things that you don't end up keeping up with when you're going through stuff like this. She put her house on the market. She had about 6 or 7 showings, but no offers, and then May rolled around on the front door. It was the banker. He brought 2 visitors with. First one, that was the sheriff. Sheriff said, hey, Linda, you got to come with me. He set her out on the front lawn, and that was the last time she was ever in her home. Second visitor, that was the moving company, and they came, they took everything down off the walls, kitchen table, couches. She had a little dog, took her dog, set everything outside next to her. Now, the silver lining of this story is they actually had some wonderful neighbors. They've been bringing food by. You know how you take casseroles and stuff by to people at church? Have you ever been part of that? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So they saw what was going on. They knew what was happening. So they took together a collection real quick, kind of like a modern day GoFundMe, you know, and they got her enough money for a U-Haul storage unit, little spending money, go get a room that night, that sort of thing. But she's never going to be the same. And that's the thing. The bank doesn't care what happens to you, Lake. The only thing the bank cares about is where is that next payment. That's all they care about. And if they would have had a plan like this, that death benefit, that would have paid out right away. Avoiding probate paid out right away. She would have been able to get current on the loan right away. If they had some living benefits, they would have been able to use those as he was sick rather than even get behind to start with. But ultimately, what she really needed more than anything else, like she needed a little bit of time. She needed some time to heal and grieve, but she didn't have it because she was working on the bank's timetable and not her own. And in this particular instance, she also needed a little bit of time to get her house sold. Because the rub of this whole story, and it's the reason why I tell it, like, when the bank sold her house 2 months later, like, she just needed an extra couple months. They ended up selling it in such a way that she ended up losing over $100,000 worth of equity in the home. And she could have used that money to take that on to whatever was next for her. And that is really what mortgage protection is, what it does, and how it helps a family like.
Wow. See, that is a master storyteller right there, guys. Did you feel that too? Did you feel that emotion? Yeah. He picked me up, he dragged me through the mud, and then he showed me a mirror. Right? That was a great job, Jared. Definitely a master.
Thanks,
so
man.
that's a great story to tell, and it's very involved and it gets the point across, but it's relatable, right? It's relatable. So that's a great part to end on for tonight, evoking the why. There is one more thing I want to mention. At the end, when you're showing the figures, there's one more emotional question that I like to ask. Okay, it's actually 2. We'll go with 2. So when I'm about to show them the numbers, I explain everything one more time, and I go over the numbers and I ask them, out of these three options, which one feels right to you guys? But most importantly, which one fits your budget? What does that do to them? It makes them go with their gut decision, right? It's that final punch of emotion that they need to make that decision. Which one feels right to you both, right? They want to feel safe and they want to feel secure. So they don't want to go with the lowest option if it's going to still make them feel uncomfortable. They want to go with the option that's going to make them feel comfortable. Okay. So that's a great way to hit it home one last time. And then there's one more emotional question. When I do the warm down, and for you new guys, what a warm down is when you're done all the applications, everything's done, everybody's signed. You don't want to just say, okay, great, I'll call you in a couple of days. You want to do what's called a warm down, which is spending 5 minutes talking nothing about insurance. Okay. That way you can build a little bit more rapport in the end. They're going to remember you so that when you follow up with them, you're still building that relationship so they stay on the books. And I swear this is a reason I have like a 92% persistency rate. That means the business I've written for the last 3 years, 92% has stayed on the books, because I always ask them, hey, Joe and Mary, do you guys feel good about what we did tonight? That locks it right in. You know, they just kind of sit back and they revel about the situation we had in the meeting we had. And they say, yeah, like I feel so much better that this is taken care of. Thank you so much. Thank you for helping me protect my wife. Thank you for helping me protect my husband. And then we just chit chat. What's on the agenda for the rest of the night? Okay. So that's it for Evoking. Yeah.
Like, this is Jared. I do that too, but I do a thermometer close.
Oh, let's hear
and
it.
I always tell people, hey, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low and 10 being high, how do you feel about what we did to protect your family tonight? Well, I feel like a 10, or if they feel like a 6 or a 7, then I go, okay, great. So what could I do to get that to a 9 or a 10, right? So it's called a thermometer close. I use it all the time, 9 times out of 10. People always say a 10, but if they don't, then you know that you got to just go back in and tweak just a little bit to get their mind right.
Yeah, good point. That takes it one step further. I like that. I'm going to start using that, Jared. Thank you for that.
Hey, Jared.
All right. Who's
Jared,
this?
it's Mark. It's Mark. Can you give an instance of what someone would say if it was a 6 or a 7? What kind of objection or what, and how you handle it?
Sure. So if somebody says, oh, I feel it's about a 6 or 7, I mean, I honestly don't get that a whole lot, to be completely honest, but I have gotten it. And I said, okay, great. So, you know, what is your big concern, and what are you thinking about that would, you know, what could we do to get you to an 8 or a 9 or a 9 or a 10? And that's when the truth comes out, right? Well, it's just a little bit out of my budget, or I wish I could get a little bit more coverage, or whatever it is. Oh, you wish you could get more? Not a problem. We're getting the ball rolling right now with underwriting. Let's get the approval done. And if you want to take it up to that top option instead of the middle option, we have 90 days to make any changes. Okay? Okay. And that always makes people feel better, that they're not locked in, right? If they change their mind, we can take it up. You know, I always go from the point of, hey, let's just get you approved. Let's get you approved at this level. If you want to take it up to that level, if you evaluate your budget and you think that's where you need to be, we can do that. We can do that in the first 90 days. It's just a couple of signatures, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what I would do.
Great. That was a great question. So yeah, the other thing that you can do, guys, is when you're talking to your clients, this is all about making them feel like they're in control when you're really in control, but they need to feel a part of the process. That's another emotional thing that they need help with. They don't know how to buy insurance. They don't know what insurance is. They're completely in the dark. So we need to hold their hand and lead them to the decision that best fits their needs, because we know best. And that's exactly what Jared is doing right there. He's just showing an extreme instance where he's such a good salesman that they end up picking something that's a little bit out of their range. So with the thermometer close, he's double checking his work. And then when they are uncomfortable, he can go back through the process again to make them feel comfortable. That's pro stuff right there. I hope you guys are taking notes.
Quick question.
Hey, yeah, I want to say this real quick. So, well, actually, yeah, let's start asking questions, guys. How I want to do this on here is I want you, if you go on the bottom of your screen, there's a reactions button. I want you to hit that, and I want you to raise your hand when you're ready to ask questions. That way I can pick on you. We're not talking all at once. So, Jonathan Price, you're up first.
Hey, real quick question, Jared. You just said, and I tried this tonight with the trial close. I want, getting you approved due to health now. I told him 30 days because I thought it was 30 days. Is it a blanket rule? It's 90 days. And is that with every carrier? And that means that they don't have to requalify with health, or what's the deal?
So it's not a blanket 90 days. Most carriers are 30, Foresters is 90. It's called a 90-day change form. It's pain in the butt. I advise not doing it. So, but being able to have it in the right spot initially is good. So I advise not doing it. It can be done. Foresters is 90. Most other carriers are 30.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm going to add on to that, Jared. So it's actually easier to go back and change the contract with DocuSign. So usually you're going to take the page that has the change to it, like the premium, and then you're going to redo a signature page with DocuSign, and that'll be a little bit easier than the 90-day change.
Absolutely. And on top of that, they have to go back. So if they do it in the 90th day, they backdate the policy to if they started it 90 days ago. So they have to pay the back premiums as well.
Right. And this is why I tell my clients it's easier to go down than it is up. Because if you're going up, then obviously you're going to owe, $20 more for the past 90 days. So it's not going to be just $100. Now it's going to be an extra $160, right? Because of that 90 days. So I usually try to get them to say, hey, it's easier to go down and up. So let's start with the standard option. If that's too uncomfortable, we can move it down to the basic. Sound good? And they never change it because typically between the basic and the standard, it's not that much money. So, all right.
And you're right. Like they basically never do change it, but they want to feel like they're in control, that they could if they wanted to.
Exactly. Yep. And you're just managing their emotions. All right. So I saw Megan Sorley next. What's up, Megan?
Hey, Lake, what's going on?
Hey.
So my question is, and I just ran a meeting like this, but this has kind of been my experience lately. Like, how do you slow the tempo to really tell these in-depth stories when it feels like they're kind of rushing you along? Like, okay, get to the point.
Yes, this is such a good question, Megan. Yeah, so sometimes we feel like we're on their time, okay, and that they're rushing us. So what I do is a nice little trick that keeps them on par with me, okay? First off, if they're feeling really rushed, I'm not going to say anything about it until I've tried to handle it a couple of times, okay? So if I'm going on to, like, say I'm on the 3rd page and I have 3 more pages left of my presentation. All right, guys, so on this page, just before we finish up, right, I'm always making them thinking the end is just around the corner, okay? But what they don't know is I'm finishing up the presentation and then we're moving on to the next thing. So I'll say, so before we finish here, I'm going to show you the living benefits, okay? So those are a couple of things to reset the tempo for them. Now, if they're rushing you a little bit, call them out, ask them, hey, guys, is this still a good time to do this? You seem a little rushed today. I just want to make sure we have time to sit down, and I want to make sure I'm doing a great job at explaining how this works for you, because it's not as cut and dry. I wish it was. My job would be a lot easier, right? You can call the pink elephant out of the room, and that most of the time they'll respect you for doing that. And if you have to reschedule, because yeah, like, listen, lady, I've got to go pick up my kids in 10 minutes. No matter how hard you try, her kids are more important than signing paperwork right now. So just reschedule the appointment. just reschedule. Don't be afraid to reset the appointment, especially when it comes to one-leggers too, right? Some of y'all try to run one-legged appointments. It doesn't work. It doesn't work with mortgage protection specifically, okay? But I hope that helps.
Hey, Lake, can I jump in with an answer on that?
Absolutely.
When I walk into a meeting and I know they're rushing me, I ask them, hey, how much time do you have? See, if you start from the beginning and know that they say, well, you said it was going to be 15 minutes. Now you're dead in the water because they planned for that. So I just say, oh, absolutely, it's 15 minutes. And if you really like what you hear, which I know you will, then the paperwork takes another 15, 20 minutes. Do you have that kind of time tonight? Because you're going to be so excited at what a field underwriter can bring you versus a salesman. So I'm setting her up to feel like there's an expectation I can do more. So do you want to hear the more? So that's number one. Number two, sometimes you just need to say, listen, we're all running a little behind. How much time do you have? And if they say no more than an hour, I'm going to say, so do you mind if I give you the shortcut version?
Yeah,
and then I go ahead and do the very same thing I was going to do anyway. But they have the impression that I'm skipping a page. So then I'll skip a slide. I'll go forward. Say, let me skip this one. I'll go forward too, but come back to it. You see, you just have to, like Lake said, we're putting on a show. Oh, Jared, what's your line about being on a Broadway show?
Yes, Sales is a Broadway show played by a psychiatrist.
Yes. So if they are in a rush, sometimes it's best to cater to them, but only if they're in a rush, but they still have an hour's worth of time. If they say, if I've only got 20 minutes, say, you know what, ma'am, it would really help me to get back on my schedule if we could reschedule you, because I've got another family that desperately needs this, and I squoze you in first. But if you've got a little bit of time, can we do this tomorrow? I would love to take care of you tomorrow when you have time. If you talk in terms of I understand how you feel, they generally appreciate you. But if you're in the middle of the presentation and they're rushing you to finish, like Lake said, just ask them, hey, is this really important to you, or can we reschedule it because you've got something a little more important to do tonight? Call the pink elephant out in the room. There's nothing wrong with doing that, because if you've got a stack of leads like we all do, some will, some won't. So what? Next.
There we go. Yeah, one more thing I want to add, Megan, before that I totally forgot about. When I'm building rapport, how do you segue from rapport building to getting to down to business? And this is a great way to set up time. So in my phone script, I'm saying, okay, so we do all of our appointments virtually. And so that I can keep our time short, let me get a little preliminary info out of the way. I say that right in the phone script. So they're thinking short. I didn't say what time, I said short. Okay. Now, when I get to the appointment and I'm talking to them, I'm going to look at the clock, 5-10 minutes or so, or just let it naturally flow. When it comes to a lull, I'm going to say, whoa, I could probably talk your guys' ear off all night, but that wasn't the plan. I told you I would keep this short. Boom. There's another time thing, right? Short in their heads. So even if we take an hour, guess what? Wow, that was pretty quick. We had a pretty good time, right? So it doesn't matter. So that's a great way to handle it.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You got it. We got time for 2 more questions. So I see Stephanie first and then Corey.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. This is more for you because you mentioned that you did car sales prior, and I've done car sales for a couple of years as well. So I was just wondering your take on the similarity between making a sale in car sales and insurance when you're speaking with the client.
I'm going to tell you the best advice that you're going to hear tonight. Forget everything you know about sales. And because car sales is totally different. So I had a pretty hard time in the beginning with sales because I was making them so logical, right? And I was making sales, but they weren't staying on the books. Okay. So I was really good at, let's be honest, car salesmen are pushy. They have to be. Okay. We have to be pushy. So reset your minds, let go of your ego. I don't care how good you were at car sales, right? And that's not to be offensive, but let go of your ego and relearn the system, relearn that emotion, start to get the feeling out of your clients. And that's going to help you a lot. Then as time goes on, you're going to notice similarities yourself, right? On specifically closing questions. That's huge in the car sales business, right? In the car industry. There's some other similarities, but if you can reset everything you know about sales, you're going to have a much better and learn a lot faster.
All right, thank you.
You got it. Corey, what's up, my man?
Hey, Lake. My question is basically in line with Megan's. So just for context, I've been calling age leads, threes and fours. But what do you do when you get on the phone with someone who basically just acts like a tough guy and doesn't want to talk to you and basically tries to rush you off the phone?
That is a good one. So typically, if someone's trying to rush me off the phone, I'm going to tell them, oh, I'm not trying to do anything right now. Right? Because they think you're going to try to sell them right then and now. They don't have time. I'm going to be like, I ain't got time to help you right now. I'm trying to help. Right. And you can match his tone too. If he's like, yeah, well, I'm busy. I'm trying to go here and there. I'm just getting back from a store. Oh, hey, hang on, John. I'm not trying to do anything right now. I just need a minute so we can set up a time because I know how important this is to you. You're going to put words in his mouth. I know how important this is to you and your family. Well, it's not that important because I already got it taken care of. Great. So you probably want to get off our call list, don't you? Well, yeah, so that I can do that for you. Let me mark my file really quick. See, you're going right into the objection handling, right? You got to slow them down a little bit, right? By calling them out, and then you restart that. Nelson, you have a great way of doing this too.
Let's go ahead and I'll pretend I'm calling you. So hit me with the objection you got, and I'll try to respond.
Yeah,
Hey,
so I don't got time really,
No, not you. I wanted him to do it.
Oh, Corey, okay, go
I
ahead.
want to hear
Corey.
whatever it was he was faced with.
Hey, can you hear me, guys?
We can hear you.
All right. Hey, yeah. Basically, just this guy. He told me he was out of town for work, and he was on a boat actually, and he didn't actually sound like he wanted to talk at all. He didn't say anything specific.
All right,
really.
just be him. Be him right now. Hey, sir, this is Nelson getting back to you from the Mortgage Protection Center. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right.
No, I want you to be the client that just was trying to rush you off the phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He just said, "Hey, I'm actually out of town right now for work, and I don't have a whole lot of time to talk."
Okay, is that the way he spoke to you?
Essentially, yeah.
He was calm and smooth like that because you said he was on a boat. How'd you find out he was on a boat?
That came later. But
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
So if the guy says, I can't really talk right now, I say, oh my God, listen, I want to get emotional. I want him to know I acknowledge the fact that he's telling me this isn't a good time. So I usually over emote and I go, oh my God, sir, listen, I don't want to take up your time. Take my name down. I'm not a salesman. I'm the field underwriter getting back to you about the form you sent in. So take my name down. So when I call you back, you won't think I'm a telemarketer. You see how I raised my pitch to let them know, oh my God, I know you're in a rush. I respect that.
Yeah.
But I also need him to know who I am. So I'm from the Mortgage Protection Center. I'm getting back to you about this form. Take my name down so I can call you back when it's a better time. As a matter of fact, when would be a better time?
Right. Okay. Okay, cool.
Now,
But
Corey,
you've got to emote and you've got to do it quickly. Change your cadence, be fast. Because you've got to let them know you respect them. If not, they think you're a pushy salesman.
correct.
Am I right, Lake?
Yes, you are. Thank you, Nelson. One more thing I want to add to that. Corey, how busy is he if he picked up the phone?
Right. Right. Yeah.
right? You got to think about that too. So just
Okay.
let them know, hey, you're not trying to do anything right now. You're getting back to them about this form. And guess what? The next objection will come out. And if it's really a bad time, hey, sorry about that. I know this was important to you. Listen, I'm not a telemarketer. I'm the field underwriter assigned to your case. When would be a better time where you got like 2 minutes to chat? Right? Keep it short because we only need 2 minutes on the phone to ask them all the questions. Okay.
Right. Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Cool. All right. With that, that's the end of Wednesday winners. Now, next week is the last Wednesday of the month. We do not have Wednesday winners. So what I want to hear from all of you is how many extra appointments you added Wednesday night because you weren't on training. So finish the month strong, go hard. We have one more Saturday dial session to come up. We've got the live dial team from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Hop on. Make sure you're doing your dials. Try to pay attention to your dials. That's the core time you're going to set your appointments is on Saturdays. So use it wisely and go have some fun. All right. Catch you guys later.
Thank you, Lake.
You got it.
Thank you, Leg. Appreciate it,
Love you,
man.
Lake.
Peace.
See
Love you,
ya.
bro.
Thanks,
See
Blake.
ya.